Hey, Yinz guys and gals, gather round for a journey like no other. It's time to hop on board the Where Yinz Goin podcast. From the rivers that meet at the point to form downtown Pittsburgh, to the Great Salt Lake, to the furthest corners of the globe, Matt and Katie will be your compass, your confidants, your companions of that, as we explore the wonders of travel. So kick back, relax on your couch, and let the wanderlust wash over Yinz as we discover new horizons and reminisce about old favorites. With Matt and Katie by our side, the sky's the limit. Join Matt and Katie on the Where Yinz Goin podcast, because when it comes to travel, the journey's just getting started. And now, without further ado, let's give a shout for your guides through the highways and byways of travel, the planning partners, the travel tandem, Matt and Katie.
Hi, Yinz doing? Welcome to the Where Yinz Goin podcast. I'm Matt. I'm one of your hosts. Joining me today to talk more about about Puerto Rico, this time San Juan, is Jenny, who was here to talk to us about Washington, D.C. And so this is kind of like our second part of our Puerto Rican, escape. I'd escape to Puerto Rico. I think that's a good way.
Yeah.
So we talked about Ponce with Enel before. Now we're on to San Juan, which is more in the northern part of the country, kind of like north central, maybe a little bit more towards the east, as opposed to Ponce, which is in the south. So we're going around the island, giving us a nice little tour. So when you're going into San Juan, you're going to fly into Luis Munoz Marin International Airport. SJU is the airport code. San Juan is the capital of Puerto Rico, is their largest city. And Jenny is a big fan of Puerto Rican culture. She's not Puerto Rican, but she's a big fan of it, which shows right there she's got good taste.
That's right.
So is there something what intrigued you about Puerto Rico? Was it a trip there? Was it something else, another experience? What?
So in my line of work, I have the great, I guess, privilege of working with children from all over. I run McDonald's. I'm a supervisor of McDonald's. And so I get all kinds of walks of life, all kinds of cultural diversity in my restaurant. And we have a pork processing plant in our town. So of course that draws in a high influx of um, Spanish heritage people. And so I have had the privilege of working with a great group of Puerto Rican kids for the last 4 years now. They invite me to their house for any kind of fiesta they have. They have birthday parties. They have a party for everything, honestly. They're the happiest people I know. They're always bubbly. They're always upbeat, always dancing, singing, and I just love being around them. Their personalities are infectious, and so they've kind of brought me in. They call me their honorary Latina, because I speak Spanish pretty well, and I can carry myself well when I'm at their house with their parents. And we just have so much fun talking about their home, where they're from, and just different ways that San Juan varies from America. And so then last year I went on a cruise, and it originated in San Juan. And then we arrived back to San Juan and then spent an extra 2 days in San Juan after our cruise was over. So I got to experience the city firsthand, and it amazing, just like they said. I mean, the people, the food, the culture, the history, it was beautiful, exquisite. So yeah, I would say if I could pick somewhere else to live rather than the Midwest, Puerto Rico would be right on up there.
And JD mentioned about working at McDonald's. She's also an
Mhm.
awesome travel advisor too. So
Thank you.
don't want to put that past her.
True.
But I think there's something about people who grow up on tropical islands to begin with that
Yeah,
there's a vibe.
definitely.
And you said about, the Puerto Ricans wanting to party all the time and have food and have people over and family gatherings. I just sitting here thinking, I was like, yeah, that sounds like my wife's family too. And she's
Mhm.
Indonesian. So yeah, it just Something about that. And that also tells you the signs of a good culture because they appreciate food.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about San Juan, which is where we went last year. That we got to spend a couple of days there, and um, it was gorgeous. You don't need a jacket, which is nice. And based on it's summer here, so we're getting hit with a heat wave as always. But it puts you in the mood to talk about Puerto Rico anyway. Although without the tropical islands and the beach, or the tropical breeze is what I meant. So one of the big things that's going to stand out to you when you go to San Juan, and probably one of the biggest tourist attractions, is Old San Juan, which this is the place that has all the shops and restaurants. And being a Pittsburgh fan, and Pittsburgh Pirates, which I'm wearing my Pirate jersey right now, you're going to see a whole lot of stuff about Roberto Clemente, who was Hall of Famer, Pittsburgh Pirate great. Go back and watch the 1971 World Series, and he is a beloved son of Puerto Rico. He grew up right in that area. His was where did he grow up? Carolina is the area specifically that he is from, which is right. It's like a sort of a, what would you call that? It's like a district of San Juan, or a slight suburb of it.
Yeah, I call them districts, and I'm trying to remember what the girls even call them. Um, yeah, maybe it'll come to me and while
Yeah.
we're talking.
And future reference, we plan on having some of the girls that Jenny works with on to talk about their experiences growing up in Puerto Rico and what they would recommend, and getting it from more of a younger perspective. So I'm looking forward to that. But Roberto Clemente, he was a great humanitarian besides being a great baseball player. And he tragically died on New Year's Eve, 1972, trying to bring supplies to earthquake victims in Nicaragua. And so that just kind of cemented his legend of what type of a person he was. So why would Puerto Rico not want to pay homage to him?
Yeah, so I messaged Vanessa and she said their regions, they have North, Metro, East, and Central, and then everything else is the city within that particular region. So they refer to everything as a region, and then the cities within the region.
Gotcha. And so with Old San Juan, the shops there and the restaurants, you could spend all day there just going from store to store to store to store, and you're gonna see a different variety of things in pretty much each of the stores. They had like a little specialty. I remember walking in the one that the guy was selling shirts that were heat activated. So when you're out in the sun, it's going to change color and stuff. And they look so awesome. I want to get my little girl one, but he was just setting things up to open up. They had just opened the store when we were there, and so he wasn't quite ready. But we at least got to see some of the stuff, and we were gonna make a point to stop by later on, but then just things did not happen. But they were really awesome shirts. I wanted one for me, but you know.
They had all kinds of things like that when we were there. They had jewelry makers that were set up, people selling pottery, clothing, like you said. Yeah, it's just like a world unto itself. It's so much fun.
And then all the restaurants too that you know come hungry.
Yeah. But if you leave hungry, shame on you.
Yeah, it's your fault.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, the one thing that my little girl I think loved the most was feeding the pigeons. And this is Parque de las Palomas, which translates into Pigeon Park for a reason. That there are all these pigeons there, and they have a little stand, little booth that they will sell you food to feed the pigeons, and you just hold out your hand with some of it in, and you are like mobbed by pigeons that land on you and are just eating it out of your hand. And it's my little girl could not get enough of that. That she wanted to go back again and again and again and again. And we went back like on successive days just because she liked it so much. Now, having seen the Hitchcock movie The Birds, I was a little bit skittish, but everything was fine there. And if you don't want birds landing on you, there is a way you can safely maneuver around in there without having birds land on you. Once they realize you don't have food, they're going to move on to somebody else anyway. Some of the other big things to see is the Castillo San Felipe del Moro, or it's often just abbreviated to El Moro. This is the oldest, if I can enunciate, oldest Spanish fort in the New World. And the history of this thing is pretty amazing. That it is has a 140-foot promontory at the entrance of Bay of San Juan. It is 6 levels high, it's like 6 floors, and it was built from 1539 to 1790. So just let that sink in that over 250 years it took them to build this. And they built it in different stages. They built a little thing, then expanded, then expanded, and expanded as time went on. And they needed more um, secure defenses or anything. But 250 years that this thing was built over. And it dates back to 1539. You
It
know,
was amazing, amazing to see. Yes. And I was going to say it's a national park, which is awesome because if your kids are into doing the national parks registry and they're earning the badges, there's a fun little paper guide that you can get from there to fill out and answer all the questions and color. And they have it in English and or Spanish. They were out of the English version the day we were there, so we had to do it in Spanish. But then you turn it in and you get a cute little badge and you get to do the little oath, which was super fun. It was a lot of fun for me.
that's a nice thing with the national parks that it's not always the most exciting thing for young kids to be going to. Oh, it's a national park
Hmm.
and it's history. Oh, we got to learn stuff. No,
Right, right.
but this can make it fun. And if you allow yourself to get into the story of these places, it's just fascinating. Like just
Yeah.
walking around, they had the thing. Oh, here's where the kitchen was. Oh, look, that makes sense because it was
Mhm.
here, and this other stuff was here, and look how
Yeah.
they did this, and this was set up here so they could have. And it's like, yeah, it make I could see myself
Mhm.
living here, 500 years ago.
And as an adult, even as an adult, getting the junior ranger badge was like the highlight of my trip. I was like, and plus I did it in Spanish, which was like super exciting too. But it was just like, look, I got a junior ranger badge. So now it's in my kitchen on, I've got like a little display shelf and I've got my little junior ranger badge from Puerto Rico on there. It's really neat. It's a San Juan, and theirs is actually carved out of wood, which is unique compared to other badges I've received from other national parks. So it's carved out of wood and says Puerto Rico, and then says Junior Ranger badge, and then the historical site. So it's really neat.
And the other nice thing about it being a national park is the rangers are there, and
Hmm.
if you have questions,
Yes.
they will tell you any and everything about that. They're just waiting for someone,
Yeah.
they're there and they, okay, where's the bathroom? Where's the bathroom? Where's the bathroom? They're doing that stuff. Um, and then, just normal questions. But if you really get into it and really want to learn about this, they are more than willing to give you as much time as possible to explain all of that. That's kind of the reason they're there. It's to educate.
They'll walk around with you. Like they actually walked around with various people that, we were communicating with, that we talked with, and the rangers were walking around with them, showing their kids things and like explaining the history and what its purpose was, which was really really neat because they weren't left of their own device to look at things and try to figure out what it was.
And just a little bit of that history is that the El Moro repelled an attack by Sir Francis Drake in 1595. Uh, George Clifford, who was the Earl of Cumberland, successfully did take the fort in 1598 by attacking it from the land side, which was a little bit more exposed. But
Mhm.
then illness forced the English to leave, so the Spanish took it back over. And then there were several other attacks that they fort successfully defended against. But then in the Spanish American War, 1898, the firepower was too great. So it kind of fell into disservice that it really wasn't going to be that useful. The defenses aren't going to stand up against the firepower. But it did serve as a U.S. military base during World War One and World War Two. And the one thing that my little girl thought was the most amazing thing was actually seeing the original bathrooms,
Oh yes.
which you don't get to use, but you can see them, and it's a really ingenious thing. And even the rest of it, just walking around there, since it is on a tropical island where you're going to get a lot of rain, just the drainage stuff and the little, I call them like gutters or whatever else, they ran along the edge for the rainwater to flow into, to then flow off. And just the engineering of this, that thinking that this was all built without heavy machinery. This is all manpower, but just the ideas and the practicality of all of it, you know, awesome. Now, very close to there is the Castillo San Cristobal, which is um, the largest Spanish fort in the New World. So El Morro is the oldest. The
Mhm.
San Cristobal is the largest. It was built from 1634 to 1790. It's about 150 feet above the ocean, and it's on three levels. So it's not quite, as I don't know if I'd say it's quite as impressive as El Morro, just because El Morro, the location it sits like kind of on the
Mhm.
corner where it wraps around like the cliff of the island, and on the edge of the island by the bay there. And San Cristobal is a little bit further. What was that? Further east, a
Further
bit,
east, yeah.
but still the triangular steps there are pretty interesting. That we walked down those that my wife didn't want to, mainly because she had enough of climbing up and down steps for once. But they're both they're worth seeing. And there's a little movie in one of them, and you get to see where the cannon were and like the little lookout stations, and it's a tight fit to get into some of those areas. Also in that area, there is the statue of Cristobal Colon, also known as Christopher Columbus. And if you listen to the um, episode with Anel that we did, we talk a little bit more about the history of San Juan, or history of Puerto Rico, which was initially called San Juan Island, and about Christopher Columbus and his many names depending on where you're from. But right by that statue, and there's like a fountain there, you get to, at least whenever we were there was a guy there with a bunch of macaws that you could pay to get your picture with them. And that was another thing
That's
that my
cool.
little girl loved.
Mhm. I thought it was neat because when we were there doing our tour and walking around, they said that the statue is taller than the Statue of Liberty, which I found fascinating. I would never have guessed that, but of course, it's kind of a play on your vision when you're looking at the Statue of Liberty. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And the macaw thing, though, my little girl was got her. There were, I think, three of them, and she got them to stand on her head. And she has these pictures that she has this huge grin, and then the one he kind of started to fall off. And so I was snapping just a bunch of pictures, and you get this look of kind of like her frowning with it falling off her head. Some good pictures of it. But oh, she, even with the bird falling off and everything, she thought it was so funny to have these birds just standing on her head. Also in that general area is the Cathedral Basilica Menor de San Juan Bautista. So the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist. And what's neat about this is it has the tomb of Juan Ponce de Leon, or I guess Ponce de Leon is the official way how you would say his name. That I guess he didn't find the Fountain of Youth. So that's one thing that I regret about not going to see whenever we were there. That we had the other things that we were trying to get in, and you have to make your list, check it twice, and figure out what you want to do to maximize your time. And that was one thing that went by the wayside that I think would be pretty neat to go down and see that.
we went and we took pictures. And I will say when we first walked in, there were lots of tourists walking around, and yet it was so quiet. Like everyone within there was just super hushed, super quiet, very respectful. It was, walking around looking at all the architecture. The wood is amazing in there. And just walking around looking at all the beautiful carvings and all the wonderful architecture. But like I said, it was just like a feeling like no other because you were in a holy place and it was just very, very respectful. Like I said, you could smell the old, that's for dang sure. You knew that it was old when you were in there. But gorgeous. It was so gorgeous.
And that's good to hear that. I know this was years ago when we were in Paris and we got to go into Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one thing that it's good to hear that people are respectful of that, that
Yes.
even no matter what your faith is or your beliefs, that you're going to a place that is considered holy by some
Mm-hmm.
people and is a
Yeah.
place of worship. So to treat it with the respect that it deserves, not especially we were in, I think they might have been doing a mass while we were in Notre Dame. And that's what, whenever we went in, they said, okay, just kind of keep it quiet because they're actually,
Mm-hmm.
in the process of a mass. And so everyone was real great there too. But other things of like whenever we've gone travel abroad, that we were in Thailand and went to a Buddhist um, temple and the same type of thing, that everyone was very respectful and just
Mm-hmm.
being able to see how other people worship and other people's religions and other people's cultures is that's why you travel.
Sure. Yeah. And I was like, it's the oldest cathedral in the United States and the oldest like purpose built cathedral in the Americas. So I found that pretty fascinating too, because it's just like it's still standing. Like it's just it's a marvel when you come from. I mean, we come from a newer country anyway. You know, like you're talking about going to Paris and like traveling abroad, and just think about the history that's in Paris or that's in Rome compared to how far back we can date America. So the fact that this cathedral has been there since pretty much before the Americas were made into the Americas is just pretty neat to me. And that we can go visit it. We don't need a passport and we don't need to travel to France. So
Yeah, and that's another thing of the perspective of just age of what you're in of buildings around the area that,
mhm,
in the United States, we weren't here 250 years ago officially. It was
right.
colonized and everything. So there's still some things that date back to there, like in Pittsburgh, uh, where the old Fort Pitt and well before that Fort Duquesne, when it was a French fort, were located. That there's still what's called the blockhouse. It's kind of like a little outer, um, like a sentry post or like a watch tower type thing. It's not really that tall, but it's like a two-story building where like the outer guard would be sitting. That it's still around, but something like that is 250 years old, and that's an old thing. You look at the rest of the United States that we pretty much want newer, bigger, better.
Yeah.
If your city's baseball stadium is over 30 years old, they want a new one. Now Jenny's Midwest Chicago, Wrigley Field, that's over 100 years old, and they've done a lot of retrofits to that. But so you still get some of the old things there, but we don't get old. But then you
Mm-mm.
mentioned in France with Notre Dame being, what was that, in the 1400s, 1500s, that
14.
was built? Yeah, so six, 700 years old. In Rome, you're going back thousands of years for some of the places there, like with the Colosseum. But just the age. And the other thing you mentioned there was about how it smells old. That
Mm.
in the movie Goodwill Hunting,
Oh yes.
that Robin Williams, yeah, I think you know the scene I'm talking to, is talking to the Matt
Hmm.
Damon character, and he says, "Yeah, you're smart. You can read about all this stuff about what the Sistine Chapel looks like and how old it is and how tall it is and what do all the pictures look like." But he said, "But you know what you can't get from a book? What does it smell like there?"
Yeah.
And according to Jenny, well, paraphrasing Jenny, it's going to smell old, most likely.
Very
But
much
uh,
so.
but it's another thing like whenever I've gone out to Yosemite, I've mentioned on this podcast before, talked to my dad, that you can feel the vastness and you can feel the space. That being in a place that you get more than what you see from pictures or what you can read about in a book, of the smell of it, the look of it, the
Mhm.
little details, the lighting,
Yeah.
and that is why you travel, that you want to have those experiences that you can't get from watching it on TV or seeing a picture.
Well, and like you said, even the feeling that it evokes. I mean, there's just
Hmm.
you don't get that from the pictures. You don't get that from the history books. You don't get that from reading about what it is. You need to walk into it, smell it, see it with your own eyes, and just the feeling of all that history that happened there coming alive, and like you are in the same spot where, you know, whatever period of history happened. It's just, yeah, it's like no other. That's for sure.
Or even just the sound of your feet on
Hmm.
whatever the surface is,
The
whether it's
creaky
marble or
floorboards,
wood.
they were wooden
Yep.
and it was very creaky.
Or like even outside when you're walking around, that you're walking on like cobblestone streets and the
Hmm.
feel of that under your feet. It was funny. We were driving along it, and my little girl was like, "What's that noise?" And I'm like, "It's the street with the cobblestone." She's like, "Can I go out and walk on it?" So she wanted to experience it. And so yeah, we eventually did. Now in that area is also the cruise port, so be careful if a cruise ship is there because the old San Juan will get overrun with cruise people. So be aware of the cruise schedule. Although it's pretty impressive to see some of the cruise ships up close if you've never been on one. And if you have been on one, they're still pretty impressive. I forget which one was in port whenever we were there. I think it might have been a Carnival cruise ship that was there. We actually got to see from up on whenever we were at the one of the forts that we could see down, and we could see it there when we were on the roof. Another place, if you want to get out to nature, is El Yunque. So Yunque. Obviously, it was kind of like Yankee to me, with the way I was picturing it in my mind. But it's Yunque National Forest, which is the only tropical rainforest that is in the U.S. National Forest System. And this is a sacred place in Puerto Rican culture. And the name, they're not really sure where the name came from, but it could be either from, was it Taino, Taino, the word that's Yuke or Yuke, Yuke, which means white earth. And it's thought to be a reference to the clouds that gather around the rainforest, the peaks, the mountain peaks that are in the rainforest. It could also be from the, was it Taino word of, was it Yukahu, Yucahu, which was one of the deity of fertility.
Coffee. Okay. Yeah, I have trouble with the Y words. That's, see, this is where you wish my girls were here. They would be able to tell us.
And so
Probably
they'll correct us whenever
Yukahu.
we have
You're
them
probably
on.
right. Yeah, Yukahu.
That's another thing about different languages of how they are a lot more phonetic than English is,
Hmm. And
especially with.
the two girls are very different in how they speak also, because they're from different parts of Puerto Rico. So that's kind of interesting. You know, we talk about being in America, how we have different accents based on where you're located. They also have different accents based on where they're located, which is kind of neat.
That's another thing that was in Wayne's World that Wayne's girlfriend Tia, her name starts with a C, Curry or something, that she was talking in the executive guy who was it Rob Lowe tried, she's speaking in Cantonese, and he's like, "Oh, I'm trying to place your accent," and he can like pinpoint where in the city she was from.
Hmm.
And that's something that happens in a lot of countries too. That even Indonesia, they have a lot of regional dialects, and even also accents too, that they can tell where my wife is from. So whenever I would speak Indonesian, I speak a very bad Achenese accent because I hear her say things a lot. So I try to replicate her way of saying things.
Right.
Now, in this national forest, you're going to find waterfalls, trails. There's rare wildlife like was that the Koki frog,
Hmm.
Coqui,
Yep, the cookie.
uh, which is that. There's also stunning views, natural beauty. There's swimming in designated areas, so be careful where you're swimming. But the frogs, they're kind of famous down there. That's like kind of like a national. Well, they don't
And
call
it
it a national
isn't it
symbol.
their national? I don't know. Is, I think it's like their national animal or something. I was trying to remember. Hmm.
I
I,
don't know if it's a national thing because they're kind of part of the
yeah.
U.S., but like, yeah, quote
Right.
unquote national symbol. Yeah, they were
Right. For
everywhere.
Puerto Rico.
Yeah, we got a little one for my daughter that has like magnets in the little in the front legs, I guess, whatever
Hmm.
you call them on a frog. They can like hug you or stay cling to your backpack or something. And she thought that was the cutest little thing.
Yeah, I guess it's a symbol of Puerto Rico. My
That's a
bad.
good way of
So
saying it.
that's what it is. But yeah, the girls say I guess it actually says coquille. So like that's how it got its name. It's like coquille, 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 and it sings all the time. So and they're everywhere. I'm not a big frog fan. They kind of scare me. I'm not a big amphibian fan. So, but they were everywhere. That's for sure when we were by the rainforest. So,
And if you're not by the rainforest, they will be everywhere, but in stuffed form,
and carved form in Old San
carved
Juan, they
form,
had carved ones. Yes.
and painted form, and
Hmm.
screen printed form. Yeah, they're
Stuffy
everywhere.
form, you name it. They're in everything.
So if you are a frog fan, this is where you got to go.
Hmm. My
Ours, we
daughter
don't.
has one that hangs from her rear view mirror, actually, with the little Puerto Rican flag on it. So she loves it.
I think ours has the Puerto Rican flag on the back of it too. Now that I
Hmm.
think of it, so. But in all honesty, I let my little girl get it just because I wanted one too, and I thought it was pretty neat. So,
I don't mind them stuffed. I just don't want a real one. Not yuck. Like, no, thank you.
but if you kiss one, it might turn into a prince. So
I mean,
there
maybe
is that.
there is that.
Now, other really neat things you can do while you're in the Yunque National Forest is zip lining, riding ATVs, and guided tours. So we got to do zip lining through the jungles of Thailand whenever we were over there. That was sort of like my wife and I's kind of like our honeymoon. It was shortly after we got married, and oh, that was so much fun. Our guide had such a great personality. Was extremely not politically correct, but he had a great personality. That in our group there was another lady from Australia that and with her adult son. So I guess she was maybe in her 50s, early 60s, and he was like in his late 20s, early 30s, whatever. And the our tour guide keeps going, "Hey, sexy lady," and and then so my wife and I use that of calling each other sexy lady all the time. But she loved it. She thought it was so funny. It's like, "You're a cheeky bugger, aren't you?" She was giving it back to him. It just made the whole trip so much fun that people were playing along with that, and people were out for a good time and being able to take a joke. It was great.
Yeah,
Now, the for going into the forest is free, but if you go to the visitor center, it costs you $8 a person to get in. So just be aware of that. And when you are exploring the national park, stay on the trails. And that's advice for any national park. Stay on the trails. I think it was in Yosemite that they had a cup or a napkin or something. It's like there's 800 or like 8,000 miles of trails in Yosemite National Park. You don't need to make any more.
true that.
Stay on the trails. I kind of violated that, but not on purpose. I took a wrong turn and got lost. And now that was just two of the main touristy areas that you're going to go to. But even going through the rest of the city, into the bigger part of the city, um, they have some wonderful restaurants there too. That we so being in the 501st, the Star Wars costuming group that we do charity work, so it's being nerdy for a good cause though. That there one of the neat things is that we have members all over the world. And so since I knew we were going down there, I sent a message to the Puerto Rican group and said, "Hey, does anyone want to meet up?" And we actually got to meet one of the Puerto Rican natives who was in the Star Wars group. We went out to dinner with them.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, he suggested a restaurant, Puerto Rican restaurant, great food there,
Hmm.
and so you knew it was a great Puerto Rican restaurant because our waiter did not speak very good English. So this was not a tourist spot. That this was a normal restaurant that Puerto Ricans are going to go to. And he was also smart. A friend we met that he got us there right before the rush hour crowd. We pretty much walked in and sat right down, but whenever we were leaving, there was a line out the door, which is another sign of a good restaurant.
Right.
Now, getting around the island was very easy too. That driving on the right side of the road and normal traffic laws you're used to in the United States. Um, it got there was some traffic and crowdedness, and but nothing more than you would experience in a moderate to big city. So we had our GPS on our phone, which worked fine, and we were able to go pretty much everywhere we wanted, minus a few wrong turns by me because I missed a turn or something else. But that's a whole other story. There are a ton of different hotels and places to stay. We can recommend some good ones for you if you would like to book a trip to uh, Puerto Rico. But ours was really nice. It had a nice pool. And of course, my social butterfly daughter, we were at the pool and she was making friends with just about everybody there. So we were, just relaxing there on the poolside, watching her play with kids and talking to the other people who were there, and people from all walks of life of other people from different countries, people from the U.S. coming down, people from Puerto Rico. So it was a great mix, and um, oh, I thought it was fine. It was a very
Yeah.
inviting, warm atmosphere.
For sure. And I mean, you don't have to speak Spanish to go there also. I don't know. I don't think we mentioned that. And I mean, national language is Spanish and English. And so what's nice is I sent my mother there last year. She was looking for a place with her husband that she could go in September. She's never really gone on vacation. She's never left the country. Um, and they wanted to go somewhere nice and tropical. And I said, "Hey, this is the perfect place for you. You don't need a passport. You don't need to be able to speak Spanish because she does not speak any Spanish whatsoever." Um, and she had the best time ever. They're looking to want to go back again next year. They stayed at a really, like you said, a really nice. It was a resort hotel on the coast, on the northern coast, kind of to the it'd be the east of of Old San Juan and San Juan. Um, but yeah, had a great time and she has raved about it ever since. She was really worried going because of the Spanish, but she's like, "You're right. Pretty much anywhere we went, if someone didn't speak Spanish or English, they got someone who did. So there was always someone available that could speak to them." So,
And even if it's not so much that they might not speak English, but they don't speak English well enough that they are comfortable with it.
right, right.
But that's another good thing that if you are traveling to any different country where English is not the primary language or where other people might speak a different language, is using common words, using small words, and getting to the point. Short sentences, it doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
be tell them this big long story. Here's what I
Right.
need. And again, it's the common words of it's not, where's the restroom? Okay, toilet.
Yeah.
People
Bathroom.
understand that.
That is right.
And the other nice thing is, as Jenny was saying about not needing a passport or anything, we still used our passports um, to travel. Just we always carry them. Which again, good advice. Always have a second form of identification, but you don't need to exchange money. It's the
Mm,
U.S. dollar
yes.
there, and you're not going to
Hmm.
get an international service fee if you do use a credit card. Although, what I advise is finding a good credit card that does not have the service fee. There are some out there. Check with your bank.
Yeah.
That's what I got mine through. Our bank offered one. And it was like right before we were making our trip to Indonesia last year. And they sent us, and I saw the little thing of no international service fees. Like, oh, sign me up.
Yeah. You're like, I need that.
If only would have had
Yes.
if had this sooner.
That's funny.
So, any other things that you would like to add, Jenny?
I San Juan is famous for having the best and coolest cocktail bars on the island. San Juan has so many cocktail bars up and along right along the beach. It is also the home of the pina colada, which is like my favorite drink. So I found that fascinating when I found that out when I went last year. And 18 is the legal drinking age in Puerto Rico. So if there's any youngsters that you have out there, like my daughter turns 21 this year, but I had told her last year, I'm like, if you want to go to Puerto Rico, it's legal for you to drink because 18 is the legal drinking age there, which is really nice. Um, But yeah, they have some really, every drink that I had while I was in Puerto Rico was amazing. The flavor was so good. I don't know what they do to them, but they just taste, an umbrella drink just tastes so much better on a tropical island than it does in cornfield country, I guess. I don't know. It's just so much better.
Well, whenever we've had Maureen on here to talk about some different places, uh, the fruit even tastes better on a
Oh,
tropical
yes.
island. And I think that
Hmm.
might be part of it, that your ingredients you're
Yeah,
getting for
that's true.
these drinks, that just the oranges or the pineapples or whatever
Hmm.
you're going to eat, it's
Sure.
so good. Something in the
And
water, I guess.
fresh.
I don't know. Yeah.
So fresh.
Yeah, it's not getting shipped. That stuff that it was it was picked that morning most likely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's good. That's for sure.
Do you have a travel tip, Jenny, that you would like to add?
For Puerto Rico?
Either Puerto
Um,
Rico or in general. Either way will work.
Well, mine, I had one for Puerto Rico. I would say, I know you said driving, it was super easy to get around. My tip on that is just driving takes time in Puerto Rico, depending on when you're there. The roads are twisted and long. Sometimes depending on where you're going, there's not a signal, there's no GPS. So direct drives from town to town is sometimes not possible because the roads go around. They go around the island. So sometimes there's not a direct route to various cities. So just factor in the driving time when making plans and pack your patience. And island life is a very easygoing life. So when you're in Puerto Rico, do like the locals do, and they just are like they're not paying attention to what time it is. They are just having a good old time and enjoying life, and that's what it's all about. Enjoying life. So highly recommend going to Puerto Rico at least once in your life and experiencing for yourself.
Reminds me of a very Pittsburghese thing that there's a saying in Pittsburgh of you can't get there from here. And so it's same thing in Puerto Rico. And on that note, I feel old, but having the printed directions, or at least looking up the directions and writing
Right.
down the basic things of what you where you have to go. And I recommend that anywhere that I know we've been
Yes.
driving someplace and we've hit a dead zone of the
Hmm.
GPS just is not responding. Or,
Yeah.
one time we were coming back from DC and we had my phone was dying and the charger was not working. So I made sure that I had, all right, this route to this route to this route, at least get me to some place where I know where I'm going. So that all comes in handy. And I did want to bring up one other thing I forgot to before is the beaches. The beaches are really nice that you're not, at least where we were around San Juan, that the beach, whenever we went, nice span of beach, was not very crowded, although we were there kind of early in the morning. Um, Waves weren't too big. So there were pigeons on the beach, which my little girl got to feed again. So she loved that.
And they're all public too. There's no private beaches. So that's another nice thing.
Yeah, the waves come in and are a bit ferocious over near El Moro, and that's a neat thing to
Mhm.
be at El Moro and seeing the waves crash against the rocky coast there, which is kind of why they built the fort there. Not accessible from the water too well,
Right.
but at least with the actual beach areas, very gentle waves. Now, my travel tip is that I've mentioned this when we talked about Alani, a Disney resort and spa in Ko'olina, Hawaii. Thank you, Maureen, for giving us the whole spiel and pronunciation of that. Uh, Puerto Rico is another place that you can visit without a passport or needing to change your currency, but you can experience a new and unique culture, including a different language. Now, you can hear Spanish throughout many other places in the US, particularly throughout the South, but it still adds to the atmosphere and it's inseparable from the culture. So it kind of enhances, you know, being in Puerto Rico and hearing it spoken and seeing it written, that it just makes more of the trip. And yeah, I think you can get more out of it because of the, I guess, total immersion. Also, like Hawaii, Puerto Rico is part of the United States. So its culture and its history are also American culture and history. So
Hmm.
embrace and honor your American heritage by visiting Puerto Rico and Hawaii and experience some truly amazing islands, having a great time, getting the culture, but still, it's an American thing that this is your heritage. So go ahead and experience it. So it's that neat thing of going out of your comfort zone, but keeping one foot still in it. So you can experience new things, but it's not completely foreign. Now, if you have a destination or experience that you'd like to have us discuss on the Where Yinz Goin podcast, or if you'd like to share your favorite destination or a travel tip, feel free to contact us. We'd love to hear your feedback and ideas. Jenny, how can people get a hold of you?
Jenny at dreamsbydesign.travel.com, or my Facebook page is Dreams by Design Travel with Jenny.
For the podcast, we're on Facebook and X. We're at Where Yinz Goin, Yinz, Y-I-N-Z, Goin, G-O-I-N with the apostrophe. All this information is in the episode description. So if you would like to contact us to book a trip or have any questions, you know how to find us. You don't have to have written it down or have a photographic memory or worry about spelling. Please like, follow, subscribe, leave a review, tell a friend if you like what you heard, let other people know so they can enjoy it too. You know, share the things you like, make other people happy. Jenny, thank you very much for joining me today to talk about Puerto Rico. I know I had a fabulous time when we were there, and from what you said, you had a fabulous time. So
Yes.
let's go back.
I'm there, man. I am there. Can we leave today?
I'm all for it.
I am ready.
So please join us next time. We're Hanat Nat. We'll see you later.